19-month-old Ebony Puak is lucky to be alive. Born in Guatemala, the toddler entered this world with an all-too-common problem in children from developing countries, a cleft palate. UK HealthCare pediatric plastic surgeon Dr. James Liau met Ebony and her mother, Connie, while on a mission trip with the Children of the Americas, a nonprofit dedicated to providing medical and surgical services to families in impoverished areas.
So she had a pretty severe cleft. Not only was it, it's not your standard cleft lip, but it's actually a facial cleft. So it actually goes through the face as well as the top of the skull.
Ebony's cleft was so large it made the simple act of feeding her a major task. But despite her daughter's abnormality, Connie says her child is just like any other baby.
Ella cuando nació bien, está estable. Solo lo que le afectó fue lo de la cara.
So she had a normal birth. She was born fine. She was stable. Everything was okay. It was just that she was born with this deformity in her face.
Ella come, juega.
Como cualquiera normal.
Sí, normal.
So she's like any other normal baby. She's been growing up. She plays, she eats, she cries, she laughs.
La vida de ella es normal.
She has a normal life.
Sí, ella lucha por su vida.
And she fights hard for her life.
She's a very intelligent kid. It's actually quite phenomenal that she's lived as long as she has. I mean, right now, on the day of her surgery, she was 18 months, almost 19 months. For her to survive for so long with the kind of facial cleft that she had, it means that the parents were putting an amazing amount of time into taking care of her.
Liau travels to Guatemala once a year with the Children of the Americas, packing a small kit to perform cleft lip and palate surgeries during these trips. But after meeting Ebony, he knew that the young girl would require a major procedure that could not be safely performed in her home country.
It's a pretty hard surgery for the child. It does entail having, intracranial pressure, like I said before, but the face also has to be basically, broken off and put back together. That's not something that's feasible to be done in Guatemala safely.
Working with a national network of doctors and volunteers for Children of the Americas, Liau arranged for Ebony and her mother to come to UK Chandler Hospital. Collaborating with teams from pediatric anesthesia and neurosurgery, Liau mapped out the first and most intensive of Ebony's 3 planned reconstructive surgeries.
You can see that her facial cleft, or what we're calling a craniofacial cleft, basically comes up through here. If you kind of hit her face like this, you can see that side's relatively normal. It's just a bilateral cleft lip. But then you go to this side, it's actually quite wide open, and this is quite wide. And so there's actually an x-ray here demonstrating sort of the bone that's going on. She had some of her bone had disappeared just from her bone, or from her brain pushing on it, which is not uncommon for a cleft, facial cleft like this. And so the idea is that we would wedge this piece of bone out here, and then the orbits would rotate in this way and this way in to make it much narrower and much more normal.
On May 30th, Liau and pediatric neurosurgeon Dr. Thomas Pittman performed the craniotomy procedure at UK Chandler Hospital, moving Ebony's eyes closer together and laying the groundwork for her future surgeries. But just 2 weeks later, she was on her feet and back to her playful, cheerful self. Though Ebony still has many procedures to go, Connie was thrilled with her progress.
I've seen the changes that have her little eyes are a little bit closer together. I'm very happy about that because it's a relatively large change. I look back at the pictures where her eyes are very far apart. And when I look at her now, I see how they're much closer together.
Over the next few years, Ebony will have separate surgeries to fix her palate and construct a nose and upper lip.
Although it still looks, very abnormal, the things that I'm focused on is the eyes, right? So the eyes actually look normal now, so she can look at you straight versus one eye versus the other eye. And then if you, like I said, if you take this part right here, now she just looks like a bilateral cleft now. So now we're able to work with that versus something like this. And then the same thing on the other side. We'll have to do some work, a lot of soft tissue work here, but the idea is that we're gonna mimic that side to that side. And then we have to also fix her palate. You can see the palate's gonna be much easier to close, since it's a lot closer than before. This would be impossible to close.
Connie, who traveled away from her husband and a 3-year-old son in Guatemala to bring Ebony to the U.S., was grateful to the medical teams that are helping to give her baby a more normal, healthy life.
Pues voy a tener una mente positiva.
I'm gonna have a very positive mind.
Voy a recordar todo lo que ustedes nos brindaron.
I'm gonna remember everything that you guys have offered to us,
Lo que los doctores hicieron por la nena.
what the doctors and everybody have done for the baby,
Los cuidados intensivos.
the ICUs.
Voy a estar recordando todas esas cosas.
I'll be remembering all those things.
Y siempre los vamos a llevar en nuestros corazones.
And we'll always carry all of you with us in our hearts.